Hey Carbon Steel fans, this is my Blanc Creative 10-inch, and you can see I've had this for a while. This has become my favorite go-to pan. You can see it's got a slick, it's just got such an incredible surface on there. The seasoning is just absolutely perfect. If you remember from previous video, I flattened it out so it doesn't wobble even when it's hot. In fact, it wobbles less when it's hot because it was I hammered it out to be flat when hot, not necessarily when cold. So it's got a tiny, tiny little wobble when it's cold. But I've got a little buildup here around the rivets, which is pretty normal. And I just can't say enough about this pan. So anyway, what I thought we would do is I'll show you how it's doing. So being that this is my go-to pan, you can imagine it's pretty heavily used. Today we're going to cook some eggs. We'll do a little omelet with some mushrooms and asparagus. And I'll just share with you how great this pan cooks. So we'll try to do this in one take, real time. So if you don't want to witness the heat up process, go ahead and fast forward. But I heat these pans up on number 3, number 4 on a glass top, lower heat on gas. I really don't have a lot of gas experience, as you know. I only have a glass top, which is kind of a bummer, but you know, the surface is fine. I shake these pans back and forth all the time, and there's a few scratches, but hey, we live here, so I'm not really concerned. At some point, we'll just replace the stove, and I'll have a new one to scratch up. Unfortunately, getting gas where I live is probably not going to happen. But anyway, so I slowly heat the pan up, you know, so that I can feel the heat coming through the pan. We're going to add a little. This is that coconut oil blend, coconut and sunflower seed oil, which I use a lot of. It doesn't add any flavors to the food. It has a really high smoke point. I'm real happy with it. I've gotten some comments on the amount of oil that I use, and you know, it's personal preference. I find that that using a pretty healthy amount of oil, it helps with the non-stick. It helps you know, cooking the food more evenly. It's something I do. Once it's gotten, you know, I can now feel the heat coming, and you can see we're probably 3 minutes in. I'm going to crank the heat up to about 7 or 8, just to offset the butter and the vegetables that I'm going to throw in there. And we'll go ahead and melt that butter, and the butter will start sizzling. The cream and the butter, or you know, fat, I guess, will start sizzling at some point. This is my favorite device for cooking in, or utensil, for cooking in steel and cast iron. It bends, it's very forgiving, it's flat on the bottom. So here we're getting that sizzle that I talked about, and because the asparagus takes a little longer to cook, I'm going to add those in first. And I'm not going to touch them. I'm just going to let them, well, I take that back. I'm going to get them all in the hottest part of the pan here. And what I want is a nice sear on one side. That'll keep the top crunchy. It'll keep them from overcooking, but still give you that little bit of sear on at least one side. The mushrooms cook the fastest, so I'm going to add those last. We'll let these go for just another 20 seconds or so and add the eggs. Now, I don't like a whipped egg omelet. I actually don't really like a traditional omelet where you flip it so it looks like a taco. I like my eggs mixed pretty thoroughly with my veggies. And I also like it to be lightly scrambled. Not crazy about really blended scrambled eggs. So let those cook just a little bit, and then go ahead and mix that up. And now is the point where I'm going to turn this down and add my mushrooms and start to just layer this in. And you can see what I mean. I like a distinction between the whites and the yolks. I think it makes for a better presentation. It also, I like the taste separation. So there we go. We'll let that sit for a minute, and then we'll flip her over. It's going to be good. I'm hungry. So really all I'm doing is waiting, because remember I turned it down, so I'm not going to overcook it. I'm just waiting for it to have the consistency through the bottom so that I can flip it. That's the great thing about carbon steel. You know, it doesn't have that heat disc. So the food is actually pulling the heat out of the pan. Now, if you don't want that, cook with cast iron, because cast iron will keep up with the food. Carbon steel doesn't keep up with the food, so you can see how that slowed down right away, and that's what I love about carbon steel. It's only about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's not anything like the aluminum pans. The aluminum pans have that disc in there that hold food, hold heat, and you'd overcook it at this point. So I think we're probably good to flip it. And there we go. If anything, you would cook this a little longer. It'll be runny in the middle if we stopped now. Again, unlike cooking on cast iron, which honestly would be difficult to get it to cool down this fast. This is going to be good. And you can see most of that oil is left in the pan here. So you're not really transferring it into the food. That's probably good. Nope, see, still a little runny. And then this is just my preference at the very end here. I like to kind of chop everything up. Makes a good presentation on the plate, makes it edible. And here's where I add a little pepper. I don't use salt, but if you wanted to, you could add a little salt. There you have it. Asparagus and mushroom. I guess you'd call it eggs, right? Not necessarily a traditional omelet. So I'll show you what I do with the pan. I'm just gonna, off camera here, I'm gonna hit it with water. Now, it's not that hot, so I'm not gonna worry about, you can hear it didn't even sizzle. So just a light rinsing in the pan, or in the sink. Back on the stove. I'm gonna clean it out with some paper towels, and you can see we're almost done. And here's where I'm gonna crank it up to high. I want this pan to get hot enough to smoke off the oil that I'm about to put in it. So this is cast iron oil. You can get it on Amazon. It's called cast iron oil. And it gives a kind of a nice aroma. It's got some kind of fragrance in it. And it's a great thin oil for just finishing off the pan after each cook. I do this every time. If you could smell that, it's kind of like maybe a jasmine fragrance in there, a little citrusy. It smells nice. And I'll leave this pan until it begins to smoke. Most of the time I'm eating my eggs while this is happening. But every single meal this is my, my ritual, and it has kept all my pans in fantastic condition. So you can see it's smoking now. What I'll do is rub some of this oil up from around the edges back down onto the pan. Let's see, we're getting even more smoke. And I want a dry pan. I don't want a wet looking pan. I'm going to rotate the paper towel a little bit and rub it again. And that's it. This pan is sterilized and ready for the next cook. Go ahead and shut it off. I'm going to take it off the heat and just let it cool. But once that cools, that additional layer of not only the oils from the food we cooked, but the finishing oil has this pan ready to go next time. Anyway, that's how I use my pans. This is my favorite pan. This is the Blanc Creative 10-inch skillet. Check them out online at blanccreatives.com. And thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. I post new videos all the time.